Ndị be anyị ekene m unu. Asị m nke onye chiri ya zere. Ihe a bụ Ada Igbo ka ị na-anụ olu ya na Igbo Media n'ụbọchị nke taa. N'Igbo Media anyị na-ewetara unu ọtụtụ ozi gbasara Biafra land maka ihe na-eme n'ala Igbo na mba ndị ọzọ. Ozi nke ụbọchị nke taa si n'aka Deputy Prime Minister Ngozi ORABUEZE. Otu o si ewetara anyị ọtụtụ ozi gbasara Prime Minister Simon Ekpa na ọtụtụ ihe ndị ọzọ ha na-emegasị na Finland iji wee mee ka this our Biafran struggle ka ọ bụrụ ihe nwere isi. Biko ọ bụrụ na ụbọchị tata bụ izi na-esonyere anyị n'iru akwụkwọ, biko echefuna itinyere anyị aka n'iru akwụkwọ, gwakwa anyị ihe iche na comment section and gbasakwa ozi a ka o zuo ụmụnne anyị n'ebe dị iche iche arụ. Ngwa gere ya ka ọ ha n'uju.
To end politician from the Nigerian state, including Tinubu, including Biafra, or not the one that says he wants to come to the United States of America. Nigeria must be slammed with heavy sanctions for people to leave. It's not about being a country. Nigeria is not a country. It is a machine for Christians. It is a killing machine for indigenous Nigerians. They kill and they lie against those they are killing. Just the way they lied against Nnamdi Kanu today. Just the way they colluded with Finland to lie against Simon Ekpa. Just the way they are lying and they've just said 10 names of innocent. At least I can recognize one name there. That is an innocent indigenous Nigerian already. And Tinubu has declared him as a terrorist financier. How long? How long will this go on? While we watch until they kill all of us, until they take all of us as terrorist financiers? How long are we going to watch for the Nigerian terrorist state to continue to deal with innocent indigenous Nigerians, innocent indigenous Christians, innocent Biafrans? How long are we going to watch while this happens? Meanwhile, they romance and negotiate with the real.
What is going on? What is going on?
Nigeria can never stop the killing of Christians. That is all they do. They send all their agents on social media to report about what is going on in Nigeria. I heard one of them today saying that any action by America is going to exacerbate a worsened division along religious lines and along religious lines. That is absolutely misinformation, absolutely lie. Somebody called or something, and they use the divide and conquer. They will send so-called BIAFRANS to come out and speak on their behalf. These are agents that came from the systemic subjugation and intimidation of indigenous Nigerians back in the Nigerian state. So some of these individuals they sent on social media, they're planning to send to America again, and America is there. That the lack of some misinformation of the Nigerian state, the deceit. They label us terrorists. They label innocent people as terrorists. Do not be surprised if they label us as terrorists tomorrow. That is the Nigerian state for you. They leave the terrorists, the main terrorists that are murdering thousands of innocent Christians. They don't label them terrorists, but they go after those that speak against their policies and their actions. That is why actions must be initiated in the Nigerian state for people to leave. Just for people to leave. If not, the world leaders cannot stand and watch as millions of indigenous Nigerians and indigenous BIAFRANS are being murdered every day by Tinubu and their cohorts using their criminal state to perpetuate those crimes against innocent people, not as if they obey international laws. I call on these international bodies to immediately expel Nigeria, not from the African Union, from the United Nations, from the Commonwealth. Nigeria has no business being in those organizations, and the continued allowance of Nigeria to be in those organizations is making the world a very, very dangerous place. Nigeria must be expelled immediately from the African Union, from the Commonwealth, from the United Nations.
Please, can you hear the sound now? Is it okay now? Someone should please confirm to me. Is the sound okay? Is it okay for your end?
They are currently reintegrated terrorists in position of authority in these organizations, in United Nations, in African Union, in Commonwealth, and make them die down. The killing of Christians in that part of the world. That is why they pay.
Ozzy, thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you for confirming that.
In those positions in Commonwealth, in African Union, in United Nations, and we see them. We see them in those organizations. We see them in those positions where they die down. The criminality of the Nigerian state, they pay heavily to put their stooges in those positions.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
In the United Nations.
Thank you.
Just like we have the one in African Union. Just like we have the one in Commonwealth. We know how they operate. Nigeria must be immediately expelled from these noble organizations for their credibility and for their integrity to be maintained in the world. Again, I'm using this opportunity to call for the immediate suspension of Nigeria from the African Union and other organizations where human rights try to supersede country laws. Yes, countries have their independence and laws because that is the narrative Nigeria keeps misinforming the world. Yeah, we are an independent country. We have our laws. Like I read the old man today was saying about the constitution of Nigeria. And let them say, oh, people have the right for them to self-determination, but self-determination must be done under the Nigerian constitution. So when Nigeria becomes a member nation of United Nations, of African Union, the Commonwealth, the laws that are maintained by these organizations, is it not to make presidents to be disciplined? Is it not meant to make leaders like Tinubu and the Fulani terrorists ruling Nigeria? Those laws in those organizations, are they not made to curb their excesses? Are they not made to curb their criminality? Are they not meant to make sure that the world becomes a better place? But today, we hear Tinubu through their stooges saying, yes, Nnamdi Kanu has a right to self-determination, but self-determination must be under the constitution of the Nigerian state. How factual is that? How factual is that? Who determines? If we allow Commonwealth, United Nations, all these other countries, all these beautiful organizations to make their laws subservient to the states, to the countries, to the leaders, then that means we are all gone. That means we are all gone. That's why the United Nations set up a committee for the extraordinary rendition of Nnamdi Kanu. That committee recommended that it should be left alone, should be released by the Nigerian government and be compensated. Did Nigeria do that? No. Did the United Nations take any action against that? No. Because the Deputy Secretary to the United Nations, the that is a Nigerian stooge that is right there, she will use her power to disrupt everything that will go against Nigeria. So that woman should be fired immediately from the United Nations. Nigeria, of these organizations of importance, is continuing the killing of innocent Nigerians, indigenous Nigerians, and indigenous Biafrans. That can never be allowed to go on. They don't follow the rules made by these organizations they belong to. And some of the world leaders, you sit on the same table with this criminal state and want the world to believe in these organizations. That is not going to happen. That will not happen. Appropriate sanctions must be taken against Nigeria immediately for people to leave. I also listened to one of the Nigerian activists, the prosecutors, saying self-determination laws, decolonization laws, human rights laws, which are widely and widely accepted to make the world a better place, it does not apply to Nigeria. That is exactly what they are telling you. It does not apply to Nigeria. According to him, Tinubu clearly believed that the law of Nigeria supersedes any international organization they belong to. That is why they are very reckless in their activities. And nobody is doing anything about that. That cannot continue. Because if we allow the leaders of countries in the world to carry out activities, to do things they want, then this world will be a very dangerous place for our children, for our grandchildren, yet unborn. That is why Nigeria must be confronted with appropriate sanctions to make people leave, to make the world a better place. They thrive on criminality. They thrive on bribery. Everywhere they see something good is going to happen, they send their agents there. They bribe. Most of them, they send into Nigeria. They bribe them with choice cars, choice homes, choice money. That is why when they engage in their criminality, those embassies, they don't talk. Those ambassadors, they don't talk. How long are we going to continue to allow things like that happen? How are we going to make countries, how are we going to make the world a better place? Again, I want to use this opportunity to let the world know that the killing of Christians by the Nigerian state can never stop if Nigeria does not obey and follow the laws of different organizations established in the world to make the world a better place. Over 5 ports, over 5 courts discharged and acquitted Nnamdi Kanu, including the court in Kenya. But today, Nigerian government has jailed him for life. And what does that tell the world? What does that tell the world? And you have the agents scattered all over the world, lying and misinforming people. That is the world those in Nigeria, indigenous Nigeria, live in. That is why the United States of Biafra has declared their independence. Through a self-referendum where over 50 million Biafrans voted to exit Nigeria. And on November 29, 2024, thousands of Biafrans gathered in Latifunda to declare our independence. That independence must be respected by every country in the world. It is a choice of the people. We've spoken that must be respected, regardless of who you are. Because we cannot continue to live with a country that reintegrates non-terrorists into the military and the police. That is a clear red signal danger to the world. The targeting of Christians.
Ndị be anyị ngwadalụ nnekwu unu si wee na-esore anyị na n'ilu akwụkwọ na Igbo midia ebe si wee wetara onye bụ ozi. Gịnị ka ikwu gbasara maka ihe ndị a niile anyị wetara n'ụbọchị nke taa? Kabara ketụsa ya bụ ozi ka ọ rute ụmụnne anyị ndị ọzọ n'ebe dị iche iche ntị maka ọ sị ọ nụrụ sị ma gịnị ya kara nwanne ya. Ngwana ka emesịa na ụmụnne m.